Good afternoon, Sp4354 people. As promised, we are going to give you a little bit of advice on assessment point 002. I met with 4 of you in a lecture yesterday and a few more today in the drop-in tutorials, but here's some thoughts about how I would go about that assessment point. So there are 2 parts to the assessment point, and both of those are based on the data set that we have given you for a female heptathlete who's currently on the Olympic Potential Programme. Now, part A of your assignment is to use the lecture work that we've done, particularly the lecture I just delivered to you, and also the lectures that you've had on components of fitness, to actually look at a needs analysis for a heptathlete. Now, what I would do when I'm doing needs analysis is I tend to use these things that are called profile wheels. And having looked at the specifics of the event, and you might want to look at multiple events, I would look at different domains that I would expect to develop within a successful athlete. So for example, we might look at psychological characteristics, we might look at physiological characteristics, and we might look at technical characteristics, and what the athlete needs to be proficient in if they're going to make an excellent job of their performance. So that's the first part of your assessment, really. Identify what you would consider the fitness requirements for a successful heptathlete. And once you've done that, review the athlete's data set. What are they successful at, okay, against what you've identified, but also compare it to the data that I've provided you from UK Athletics. Okay, this was all sent out on email yesterday. So that you guys can have a little look at a comparison. From that, the final sheet that I gave out to people yesterday is an idea of a macro cycle. Alright, this is a long-term planning document for how we plan to develop our athletes. And what we're asking you to do is identify a section of that seasonal, 1-year training program that we would call a mesocycle, so 8 weeks of training. I'm not expecting you to put down a day-to-day analysis in terms of this session's going to carry on this warm-up and then these activities. What I do want to see, though, is what you're going to be focusing on every day in terms of things that you've identified on your profile wheel. And what I want to expect to see throughout this assignment is where that is generated from in terms of research. So I'd expect you to be hitting the athletics books in the library. I'd also expect you to be justifying what you're doing through some literature around fitness components, how we test for those fitness components, and I would expect to see that at the beginning of your 8-week period, what tests you're going to use and what you're going to use at the end of the period to make sure that you know if your athletes made any improvements. And I would expect to also see literature in your first section, section A, around periodization and planning. Okay. Any questions, as always, you can get a hold of us. But hopefully that's pretty straightforward as a 2-parter for this one assignment point. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.